The October rain had been falling steadily for 3 hours, turning the streets of downtown Los Angeles into a maze of reflections and shadows. Under the concrete shelter of the 4th Street Bridge, Marcus Williams pulled his worn military jacket tighter around his shoulders, listening to the rhythmic drumming of raindrops above. At 52, Marcus carried the weight of 2 wars in his weather hands and the distant look of someone who'd seen too much. The cardboard beneath him was already damp, but it was better than nothing. He'd learned to find comfort in small things. The bridge kept him dry, and the traffic noise above helped drown out the memories that surfaced in the quiet hours. His calloused fingers traced the Purple Heart medal hidden in his jacket pocket, a habit he developed over the past 5 years since losing his apartment, his job, and nearly everything else that once defined his life. The traumatic brain injury from an IED explosion in Afghanistan had stolen more than his memory. It had taken his ability to hold steady work, maintain relationships, and sometimes even remember where he was. The sound of a car engine sputtering broke through the rain's monotony, followed by the distinctive hiss of air escaping from a tire. Marcus sat up, his military training still sharp despite everything else that had faded. A black Mercedes sedan had pulled over just beyond the bridge's shadow, its hazard lights blinking desperately in the night. Through the rain-streaked windshield, Marcus could make out a single figure, a man in an expensive suit, alone and clearly frustrated. The car's position was dangerous. It was partially blocking the right lane of traffic, and with the rain reducing visibility, it was only a matter of time before someone didn't see it. Marcus knew he should mind his own business. Experience had taught him that most people didn't want help from someone like him, someone whose appearance told a story of struggle and loss. But something deeper than social conditioning stirred within him, the same instinct that had made him run toward danger instead of away from it during his 3 tours overseas. He stood slowly, his joints protesting after hours on the cold concrete, and walked toward the stranded vehicle. As he approached, the driver's door opened and a familiar face emerged, though it took Marcus a moment to place it through the rain and his sometimes foggy memory. "Sir," Marcus called out, his voice hoarse but steady, "you can't stay parked there. It's not safe with this visibility." The man looked up, rain already soaking through his expensive jacket. There was something about his bearing, his presence, that Marcus recognized but couldn't quite name. "I know," the man replied, frustration evident in his voice. "Flat tire, and I can't get a signal to call for help." Marcus stepped closer, and suddenly the recognition hit him like lightning. The strong jaw, the intense eyes, the unmistakable voice that had commanded attention in dozens of films. This was Denzel Washington, standing alone on a rain-soaked street at midnight, as vulnerable as any other person facing trouble. But Marcus didn't freeze or ask for an autograph. Instead, he did what felt natural. "I can help you change it if you want. I've got steady hands, and I know my way around cars." Denzel studied the homeless man for a moment, taking in the military bearing that even years of hardship couldn't completely erase, the direct eye contact, and something else, a quiet dignity that seemed incongruous with his circumstances. "You sure?" Denzel asked. "It's nasty out here." Marcus almost smiled. "Sir, I've worked in worse conditions than this." "The trunk's got your spare and tools." As they moved toward the back of the Mercedes, neither man could have imagined that this chance encounter under a bridge in downtown LA would set in motion a series of events that would change both their lives forever. Sometimes fate disguises itself as coincidence, and sometimes the most important meetings happen when we least expect them. The rain continued to fall, but under the dim glow of the hazard lights, 2 men from vastly different worlds were about to discover they had more in common than either could have imagined. Denzel popped the trunk, revealing a pristine spare tire and a complete set of tools that looked like they'd never been used. Marcus ran his weathered fingers over the jack and lug wrench, muscle memory from 20 years as a mechanic taking over despite the years of hardship. "You know what you're doing," Denzel observed, watching Marcus efficiently assess the equipment with the practiced eye of a professional. "Used to own a shop," Marcus replied, already positioning the jack under the car's frame. "Williams Auto Repair on Crenshaw. Fixed everything from classic Mustangs to 18-wheelers. His voice carried a mixture of pride and loss. Before everything changed. The rain intensified, but Marcus worked steadily, his movements precise and confident. Denzel found himself genuinely intrigued by this man who seemed to carry contradictions. Homless but dignified, broken but capable, forgotten by society but possessing skills that spoke of a different life. "You mind me asking what happened?" Denzel asked, holding a flashlight he'd found in the glove compartment to illuminate Marcus's work. Marcus paused for a moment, the lug wrench steady in his grip. Most people who asked that question were either looking for entertainment or judging him before he even answered. But something in Denzel's tone was different. Genuine concern, no condescension. "IED took out our convoy in Kandahar, 2018, Marcus said, loosening the first lug nut with surprising ease. "Traumatic brain injury left me with memory issues, seizures sometimes. Couldn't keep up with the precision work anymore. Customers don't want their engines worked on by someone who might forget what they're doing halfway through." Denzel felt something shift in his chest. "You served in Afghanistan? 3 tours, 101st Airborne, then Army Corps of Engineers." Marcus removed the flat tire with smooth efficiency, despite the rain making everything slippery. "You learn to fix things when you're deployed. Vehicles break down, and if you can't repair them, people die." "What years were you there?" Denzel asked, something urgent creeping into his voice. 2009 to 2012, then again in 2017 to 2018. Marcus aligned the spare tire, his movements still sure and practiced. "Why?" Denzel's heart began to race, but he tried to keep his voice steady. "My nephew, my sister's boy, David. He served there too. Different unit, but..." He trailed off, watching Marcus work. "David Washington?" Marcus looked up sharply, rain streaming down his face. About 6'2", scar on his left hand from a motorcycle accident when he was a kid? The flashlight nearly slipped from Denzel's grip. "You knew him?" Marcus's hands stilled on the lug wrench. The memory was hazy, like most things since his injury, but this one had always stayed clearer than the rest. June 15th, 2018. Roadside bomb hit his patrol near Forward Operating Base Lightning. I was part of the response team. The rain seemed to pause around them, the world narrowing to just these 2 men under the harsh hazard lights. "David was trapped under their Humvee when we got there," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger as the memory solidified. "Engine block had him pinned, bleeding bad from his leg. Took 4 of us to lift it enough to drag him out. But the fuel line was leaking, and we could smell smoke." Denzel's breath caught. David had told him about the accident, about the soldier who'd refused to leave him behind even when everyone else was yelling to get clear before the vehicle exploded. "I stayed with him while the medics worked," Marcus said, tightening the last lug nut. "Kid kept saying he had to get home, had to see his uncle Denzel again. Said his uncle was famous. But I thought he was just delirious from blood loss." "He wasn't delirious," Denzel whispered. Marcus lowered the jack, his task complete, but neither man moved to get out of the rain. "He made it out okay?" "David? He did. He's a teacher now, in Philadelphia. Married, 2 kids. Denzel's voice was thick with emotion. He told us about the soldier who saved his life, who wouldn't leave him behind. He said he never got the man's name in all the chaos. Marcus stood slowly, wiping his hands on a rag from the trunk. "Marcus Williams, sir. Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams." For a long moment, they just looked at each other through the rain. 2 men whose lives had intersected in the most unlikely way, under circumstances neither could have imagined. "He talks about you," Denzel said finally. Every family gathering, he mentions the soldier who saved him. Says he wishes he could find you, thank you properly. Marcus felt something inside his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. A sense of purpose, of connection, of mattering to someone. I just did my job, sir. No, Denzel said firmly. You did more than that. You gave my family one of the most precious gifts anyone can give. You gave us David's life. The rain continued to fall around them, but something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't just a chance encounter anymore. This was destiny revealing itself in the most unexpected way. Under a bridge at midnight in downtown Los Angeles. Let me give you a ride somewhere, Denzel said. Least I can do. Marcus shook his head. I appreciate it, but I don't want to put you out. You've got places to be. Marcus, Denzel said, and there was something in his voice that made the older man look up. I think we both know this isn't over. This isn't just about a flat tire. As they stood there in the rain, both men sensed they were standing at the edge of something much larger than either of them had imagined when this night began. 6 months later, Marcus Williams stood in front of a mirror in his new apartment, adjusting the collar of his work shirt. The morning sunlight streamed through clean windows, illuminating a space that still felt surreal after years of sleeping under bridges and in shelters. On his dresser sat a framed photo from the previous week. Him shaking hands with Denzel at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new Veteran Services Center they'd opened together. The seizures had stopped 3 months ago, thanks to the specialized treatment Denzel had quietly arranged at Cedars-Sinai. The experimental therapy for traumatic brain injury wasn't covered by Veterans Affairs, but Denzel never hesitated when the doctors explained it could restore much of Marcus's cognitive function. Sometimes God puts angels in our path disguised as people in need. Denzel had told him that night in the rain. But Marcus knew the truth. They had been angels for each other. The drive to Sony Picture Studios took him through neighborhoods he'd once wandered as a homeless man. Now, as head of mechanical services for the studio's transportation department, Marcus oversaw a team of 15 mechanics maintaining everything from vintage cars for period films to the complex special effects vehicles that brought Hollywood magic to life. His phone buzzed with a text from David Washington in Philadelphia. Uncle Denzel sent me the article about your promotion. The kids want to know when their hero is coming to visit. We can't wait to finally meet you properly. Marcus smiled, remembering how that phone call had gone 3 months earlier. David's voice had broken when Denzel connected them, and they talked for 2 hours. The young teacher thanking the man who'd saved his life, and Marcus finally understanding that his actions in Afghanistan had mattered more than he'd ever known. At the studio, Marcus walked through the massive garage where classic cars from Fast and Furious sat next to futuristic vehicles being prepped for the next science fiction blockbuster. His team looked up as he passed, greeting him with genuine respect. They'd quickly learned that their new boss could diagnose engine problems by sound alone, and had forgotten more about automotive engineering than most mechanics would ever learn. "Morning, Chief," called out Tony, a young mechanic working on a 1967 Mustang. "This transmission's giving me trouble again." Marcus listened to the engine for 30 seconds, then popped the hood. "Your torque converter's going out," he said, pointing to a specific component. "Replace it before it takes out the whole transmission. And check the fluid. I bet it's burnt." Tony grinned and nodded. In the months since Marcus had started, the garage's efficiency had improved dramatically, and several major productions had specifically requested his team for their automotive needs. Around noon, Marcus's assistant knocked on his office door. "Mr. Williams, there's someone here to see you." Denzel Washington walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the same genuine smile that had emerged that rainy night 6 months ago. Despite his busy filming schedule, he made time for these visits, checking on Marcus and planning their next initiative to help homeless veterans. "How's the new therapy program going?" Denzel asked, settling into the chair across from Marcus's desk. "We've got 12 veterans enrolled already," Marcus replied, pulling out a folder of photos and documents. 3 of them found permanent housing last week. "Sarah, remember the woman we met at the downtown shelter? She starts her new job as a medical technician on Monday." The program was Marcus's idea, born from his own experience. While Denzel had provided the funding, Marcus designed the curriculum. Practical job training combined with medical care and counseling, specifically tailored for veterans with traumatic brain injuries and PTSD. "I've got news," Denzel said, his eyes lighting up. "The mayor's office called. They want to expand the program citywide. Full municipal funding for 5 more locations." Marcus felt that familiar surge of purpose, the same feeling he'd had in the Army when a mission succeeded and lives were saved. "That means we could help hundreds more. Thousands eventually," Denzel corrected. "But I didn't come here just for that. I've got something else to tell you." He pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a video message. On the screen, David Washington sat in his Philadelphia classroom, his students gathered around him. "Mr. Marcus," David said, his voice emotional, "these are my students. I've told them all about you, about how you saved my life, and how that led to me becoming their teacher. They have something they want to say." The camera panned to show 25 fourth graders holding handmade cards and drawings. In chorus they shouted, "Thank you, Mr. Marcus. You're our hero too." Marcus felt tears he didn't know he had left begin to fall. In the depths of his homelessness, he believed his life had no meaning, that his best days were behind him. He'd never imagined that his actions in a war zone would ripple forward into a classroom in Philadelphia, or that a chance encounter on a rainy night would lead to helping hundreds of other veterans find their way home. "There's one more thing," Denzel said softly. "HBO wants to do a documentary about our story, about how sometimes the people who seem to need help the most are actually the ones with the most to give." Marcus looked out his office window at the bustling studio lot, then at the photo on his desk of him speaking at a veterans conference the month before. The sign behind the podium read, "Marcus Williams, CEO, Second Chances Foundation." "You know what I learned that night?" Marcus said finally. "It wasn't about you helping me, or me helping you. It was about 2 people seeing each other as human beings when the rest of the world wanted to see categories. Rich and poor, famous and forgotten, successful and broken." Denzel nodded. "David called me yesterday. He said something I can't stop thinking about. Uncle Denzel, if you hadn't had that flat tire, I might not be alive. But more than that, all those veterans Mr. Marcus is helping now might still be on the streets." One broken tire led to hundreds of people finding their way home. As they sat in comfortable silence, both men reflected on how radically their lives had changed from that moment of connection under a bridge in downtown Los Angeles. Marcus had found more than a job and medical treatment. He'd rediscovered his purpose. And Denzel had learned that sometimes the most profound encounters happen not on red carpets or movie sets, but in the rain with someone society had overlooked. 3 years later, the Second Chances Foundation had helped over 2,000 homeless veterans find housing, medical care, and employment. Marcus Williams had become a sought-after speaker, sharing his story at conferences nationwide, always ending with the same message. Sometimes God puts angels in our path disguised as people in need. But sometimes we're the angel someone else needs, and we just don't know it yet. The Foundation's motto, etched in bronze at the entrance of every facility, came from something Marcus had said during one of his first speeches. "Everyone has a story. Everyone has value. Everyone deserves a second chance to show the world what they're capable of." And it all started with a flat tire, a rainy night, and 2 men who chose to see each other's humanity when it would have been easier to look away.